Good morning, Web Design 2 folks. Today we're going to be creating, or rather recreating, the structure of a website. The site that I'll be working on to show you is veses.com. This was suggested by one of your fellow classmates. So let's get started. Let's take a look at this really quick. I recognize this website as being built on something called Bootstrap. That is a very responsive template that you can use that will allow you to basically use this template in any size that you want. But since we're recreating using HTML5 and not necessarily building a Bootstrap project, we're just going to build it as if it were indeed an HTML5 page that goes from this end to this end, is centered on the page, and it's got navigation bar, it's got, let's say, a header, large one there. We have a section with 2 articles inside. We have another section with an article and a background. Then we have another section with 2 articles. Same thing here, 2 articles per section, 2 articles per section, and then finally we have the space for the footer. I'm not going to be using the tool that I give you for the assignment. I downloaded a new one. I will be providing the link for this in case you want to use it. It's a tool called Cropper. It works very much in the same way that the other one did, but it doesn't use the Adobe Air extension, and it only works on a PC. If you're on a Mac, there may be other tools that you can look for and find, although the tool that's provided should work with your Mac. Okay, so I'm going to measure this navigation bar first. It's going to give me a couple of numbers that I'm going to need for the rest of the assignment. Okay, so I'm going to guesstimate that this is about 1170 by 60, not necessarily 1169 by 61, because that really doesn't make much sense. So I'm going to start to write down this information. This is the navigation, and we'll say navigation at 1170 wide by 60 deep. Well, I'll just say H for height. Okay. I'm going to guesstimate also on how much space is used in these other articles, or sections rather, since my screen is at a resolution that works okay for the screen capture, but not necessarily to show you how everything is laid out. So let's make that first guesstimation. The width is going to be the same throughout. I'm going to go to the bottom of the navigation bar, or at least as close as I can get, and I'm assuming that this goes all the way to the bottom of this page, and this will go up to, let's say, 570. So I'll call this the header, although it may not be that, it may be something else, but we'll just call it the header. And the header is the same width, 1170 wide by 570 deep, or height. Next, I'll slide down. Well, let me turn that off first. I'll slide down. We have another one, and I'm going to guess that this is about the same, except maybe just a little bit taller, because it goes to about right there, and then there's just a little bit more. So why don't I just assume that the first, let's call it the products section products, is the same width, 1170 wide by, let's say, 600. Like I said, I'm just making a few assumptions. I bet you that this one is about the same height as the top one, if not maybe as high as the first one. So I'll make that assumption as well, and I'll just copy that information and say that the section for services is that height. Next, we have another similar box. This one looks to be somewhat taller. So what I can do is, actually, if I measure it from top to bottom, I know that that's going to be 570 high. So I'll start with that number. I'll copy that information and say that the section for, what is this? This is the blog, is 1170 wide by, so far I'm thinking it's 570. It goes to the text 2007. I'm going to keep on going lower here. I'm going to measure the area from the 2007 to the bottom of the page. So let's say 2007 to about right there. And it says that it's about, let's say 240. So it's going to be 570 plus 240 is the height. Do I dare do the math? It's 570 plus 40, so I know then this 5 plus 2 is 7, carry the 1, it's 8, and 7 and 4 is going to be 1, so it's about 810, I'd say, right? Is that right? Okay, 810. Let's close that. There's one more box that I'm also assuming is that height. These don't have to be precise. If in case you hadn't noticed, section story, it's going to be 1170 by 600. I'm going to assume that the contact is the same. It's a very simple page. Section for contact, 1170 by 600, and then we have a footer that we actually do have to measure just to be sure. Let's see, it's going to be about 160 tall. So section, not section, but rather the footer, is going to be 1170 by 160. Okay, so that's the initial measurement. Going to minimize that and go straight into my Dreamweaver. I have my recipe that I'll keep handy. I'm going to move it out of the way a little bit, maybe off screen. You won't be able to see it, but it's still there. I'm going to go into my site. I'm clicking on the main folder, in the root folder, right clicking and requesting not a new file, but rather a new folder. New folder, and I'm going to call it assignment 5. No spaces. Inside assignment 5, I'm going to create a new file. Since there's 3 files that you need to recreate for this assignment, I'm going to call this one site01 and open it up. I see my initial HTML. I'm working on the design rather than the code. I'll be using the code later, but for now I'll have design, and I'm ready to go. I need to get my insert tool. I move it every now and again just because I'm constantly making videos. Going to slide this into the top because that's more convenient for me. Whatever works for you is what you should use. Going to make the area on the right a little bit smaller so I can see more of the screen. I don't think that I'm going to get to fit everything, but I'll be minimizing the toolbar so that we can see the work that's being performed. Okay, so we start with a navigation bar. Let's find the navigation on top. Well, let's not find anything. Let's first of all get the CSS designer and add a source for CSS. I'm going to click on plus and I'm going to create a new CSS file. This new CSS file, because this is going to be site 1, I'll call it styles01, and I'm going to link it and click OK. In my files, I now have a site01 and I have a style01.css that's attached to site01. I know it's attached because it appears in the top left of the screen. So now I can come back and actually say, let's get the navigation bar in there. Navigation bar, navigation icon is this one. I'm going to just simply click. Tells me what do you want to do. I'm going to insert this at the insertion point, which is the only option that I have really. I'm going to give it an ID of let's say navbar, and I know that I use the same things all the time, but it works for me. If you want to use a different naming convention, by all means do. I'll click OK. There's my navigation bar. Next we have the header, which is actually a section of sorts. Let me remind myself of what that looks like. I'm opening up Vesis, going all the way to the top, and I see that this is pretty much just one long thing. So I'm going to use it as a section anyway, just in case I get to split this later. You know, like the others have 2 columns. This one currently just has 1 column, but I might change from single column to multiple columns. You never know. So I'll insert a new section, this icon here, click, and I'm going to insert it after the tag that I just inserted, which was the navbar. I'm going to give this an ID of page header and click OK. Next, I have a section with products. This section will eventually have 2 articles in it. Let me verify that. Yes, it's got some sort of a slideshow and then text on the right. But I'm going to start with one simple section that will hold both of these things. So click on section. I'll give it the ID of, I don't know, section products. And press OK. I'm going to concern myself later with the articles. So I want to do all the pancakes first, you know, just all the flat design, get it out of the way. Next, we're going to have the services. Services is another section. Click on that. After the tag that we just put in, which was section products, and the ID for that is section services. Section blog is next. I don't know if you noticed a pattern developing. All of these are the same for the most part, with very little differences. And so far the height doesn't even matter. So I'm going to click on code and I'm going to see what's going on. And I see that I have a section ID that's page header, section ID that's section products, another section ID that's section services. Well, I could simply just copy that text, copy that, and I press Control C after I highlighted it. Press Control V to paste, and I can say that if I'm going to have a section blog, I can just say section blog goes here, and whatever text comes later will go there. So when I go back to design, you'll see now I have another piece of the puzzle done. I'm going to just keep on working with the visual part. I just wanted to let you know that that's something you can do. Next, let's do a story, section story. Let's get the section going. ID at insertion point, rather, after tag. And there's a section blog. Even though we just typed it in, it's still there. ID is going to be section blog. No, story. Click OK. We have one more for contact, and that is section after the tag that I just put in, section story, and it's going to be called section contact. Yes. Okay. And then finally we have a footer that's 1170 wide by 160, but we're still not doing that. Let's do the footer. Click on top. I'm going to, and I always do this with the footer, before the end of a tag. It's the body tag, goes all the way from top to bottom. So before the body ends, put in the footer. We'll give it the ID of page footer. And here's my first look at what this website structure is going to be looking like. In the next video, I will start to add the height and add some other information about each of these tags, and we'll start to flesh out the structure.